Okay, my name is Fred Parsons. I was born in Welland, 1933, on Helms Avenue, at my grandmother's house. And I think my father might have been sailing at the time, so that's why. And then we moved over to Burger Street a couple years later, I guess, and I went to Central School. Some people remember where that was, where the marketplace parking lot is right now. And then in 1942, I think it was, we moved over to, my mom and dad bought a house, and we moved over to Thorne Road. And for the next several years, I went to Ross School until it was time to go to high school. In those, now I'm into my teenage years, I guess, living over in the North End. There used to be a club called Boys Town. It was run by the Optimist Club. It was for 3 different nights, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And it was very interesting. It was, as I say, it was called Optimist Boys Town. And they had a number of activities going on there. Friday nights, I believe it was, they had invited girls for dancing. And but they had, it was interesting, they had a number of things you could do, crafts. They had wood carving. They had a gentleman there that would show you how to build model ships from scratch, which I do still to this day. What else? There was an interesting little feature that they had. They had a gentleman come in and showed us how to make little crystal sets. You'd wear earphones, and you'd move this little wire thing around on the crystal, and you could pick up a radio station, believe it or not. And then they had boxing. I think Bob Napper was the man in charge of that area. They had judo. I think there was a gentleman who used to be an RCMP officer, and he taught judo. There are other activities. I've kind of forgotten what they were now, but it was a good place at that time for teenage boys, young boys, to go. As I had said, we moved up to North End, and I went to Ross School from grade 4 to grade 8. After that, I went to Welland High for 1 year. I didn't do so well, so I didn't go back. I kind of upset my dad a little. I started working at 15. I worked for the father of a friend of mine in my neighborhood. It was general contracting, that sort of thing, laying hardwood floor and sanding and finishing. We redid bathrooms and tiles and so on. Another job I had for about 2.5 years. I got a job at the Welland Tribune, which was at the corner of Avenue Place and King Street. Had moved later on to East Main. But that was an interesting job. I was known as a printer's devil. I used to pull galley posts after the linotype operators had typed up the stories. And then in 1951, a friend of mine from the neighborhood, we went to the Central Fire Hall on Division Street one Wednesday afternoon. What do you call it? A recruiter came down from HMCS Star in Hamilton, and we tried to join the Navy. We did the written exam and we passed, but I failed the eye test. So, but the other fella, he made it, and the guy told me, he says, get glasses and come back. Excuse me. So that was in April of 51. In about August, two other friends of mine, Gord Barrett and Jack Coles, we went to Hamilton and tried again with my new glasses. And this time we all passed and got in. I was called first, Gord was called second a week later, and then Jack. So then they shipped us off to basic training in Cornwallis in Nova Scotia, where we spent 23 weeks. After the 23 weeks, I came home, I spent a little leave time, and then I was shipped out to British Columbia, Esquimalt, to supply school, because wearing glasses, I was not able to be anything that needed perfect eye, so I was in the supply branch. And I spent 5 months out there. Again, I failed the first course. And I almost turned to be a stoker, but then I got thinking, geez, I don't want to work down in those hot, cold, dark places. So I went and saw my divisional officer, and he allowed me to take the supply course again, which I did, and I came in first. Then they shipped me to Halifax, and for about 6 or 8 months I worked at a supply depot, and that was probably September of 51, 52. Oops, sorry. Okay, I guess in my teenage years, downtown was a busy place rather, and not like, well, it's growing today, but back then it was, especially around Christmas time, the main streets were just people walking back and forth. I remember that. A favorite spot downtown was Saturdays at the Park Theater. Park Theater? Yeah, Park Theater. And on King Street, just not too far away, was the Community Theater. It was a much smaller one, but it was a place to go on a Saturday afternoon. The two restaurants that I remember, one on East Main was the Olympia, I think, and on West Main was the Astor Cafe. We used to hang out there quite a lot. At that time, used to kind of like seeing the boats going through and the bridge going up until I started working, and it made me late for work a few times. But that it? Sure. Okay. While I was in the Navy, at one point, I went aboard ship for about 22 months. And I did end up coming back to that supply depot for a brief period. And in that brief period, I got married, and but then I did a little bit more sea time, and I'm glad I did, because with the travel, it injected a kind of a travel bug in me. That after I got out after 5 years, I came home and started a family. Well, yeah, started a family, and got myself into a working situation with the water department / city of Welland for 32 years, and then I retired, and then I picked up on the traveling. So I did a lot of traveling. I became no, I won't. I became independent, and I could do a lot of traveling on my own, put it that way. And I really enjoyed that part of my life. As I previously said, I left school after grade 9 when I was 15, and then spent 5 years in the Navy. When I got out of the Navy and started working, I got to wondering. I would think I was getting to be about 29 at the time, and the job I had with the water department, I thought maybe if I were to enhance my education, I might be able to progress a little further. So I started taking correspondence courses, and that wasn't working too well because you couldn't put your hand up if you wanted to ask a question. So I started going to night school, or actually there was a nice plan here in Welland through the high school. It was called something about hard knocks, School of Hard Knocks. And there's a gentleman who at the Welland High School, I think his name was Don Simpson, who worked this program, where in that if you were to get 29 credits, you then could get your grade 12 diploma. So I went that route. It took me 15 years of night school, and I passed. Speaking about reading, I all the time through school, and I don't know how I got away with this, I never ever read a book. I don't know. I think back and I think, well, how come I didn't ever read a book? Wasn't there a project I was supposed to do? But the first book I ever read was at sea. There was a book being passed around, and I read from cover to finish to the end. And that is the first book I ever completed. But in more recent years now, I never leave home without a book. I am a member of the Welland Library, but you know what? I've been buying my books at the depot in St. Catharines for a few years. But yeah, I do a lot of reading, morning, noon, and night, really. Period. There's one thing that I am very pleased with what I have done in maybe the latter 20, 25, 30 years is travel. If I would strongly suggest that if you're able to travel and learn about things. I'm sorry about one thing in my earlier days in the Navy when we did a lot of traveling. I love the Mediterranean because that was my first introduction to traveling. But I had no history background. But now I watch all these programs, and I'm learning in reverse, so to speak, about the travel.